Welcome to the first episode of Darryl and Renee's WDW Honeymoon. I'm Darryl.
I'm Renee.
And we thought it would be fun to do a vlog on the planning of our honeymoon. So I am the host of the Geo Gearheads, which is why we're in the Geo Gearheads studio. It's a podcast. So we're not really vloggers. We're podcasters who happen to do stuff on YouTube. And the last time, though, I was in Walt Disney World was January of 2011. So I haven't been there in a while. But disclosure real quick, I own both Disney and Apple shares in my retirement account. So, there's that other way. The legal stuff's done.
All done. So I was in Disney World once and I was 2. So I really don't remember it.
Well, and that was before Epcot opened.
I'm only 29. Yeah, there was no Epcot when I was there. I don't think there was anything else. I think there was just the Magic Kingdom.
Right, because you probably had River Country. That was the water park.
I'll have to ask my cousin or my sister.
Yeah,
they were a little older.
I think that was about the right time that River Country was there. But yeah, it was as far as the major parks, it was just the Magic Kingdom.
Okay, I really don't remember anything about it. I remember a little bit about the airplane, and I'm not sure if I actually remember the airplane or the story my mom tells me because I wanted to draw when she wanted to eat, so her lunch ended up in her lap. That's all.
So you were a messy girl back then too.
Hey. Anyway, so the last time I was at Disneyland was a very long time ago. So basically, I'm a newbie, but I have been to Disneyland a couple times. I used to live in California. And last year in April, we went together, and it was Darryl's first time in the land.
Yeah, that was a real fun trip for me because I've never been to the original park. And I've heard that some things are better there and some things are better at Disney World. And even though I haven't been in 6 years at that point, it still was very enlightening. And I was amazed at how much stuff, even though it's a smaller park and everything, really was better and how many things weren't.
And I'm excited to be able to actually compare the two. So Darryl knows a lot about the history and a lot of other things. And we've watched videos and other vloggers and listened to one of the books about the history of Disney World, Disneyland, Walt Disney in general. And so I'm excited to be able to compare all of it.
But we've known each other since college, never dated until a few years ago. So now we're a middle-aged newlywed couple.
I don't like that word.
I know you don't, but that's the truth. And I think it's kind of silly that a middle-aged newlywed couple is doing.
What are you going to do when you get married or a year and a half after you get married?
Yeah. Yeah. But we were married in October at the Otter Habitat at the Detroit Zoo. It was only about 2 months after we were officially engaged, which was a full year earlier than we planned. We really wanted that October date. And it turned out that it was available last year at that time. So things weren't looking so good for this year. So we just pulled the trigger and did it. So
everyone, we're getting married in 8 weeks. If you can come, great.
Yeah. So it was one of those kind of things. And Renee had asked, where do you want to do the honeymoon? I'm like, I kind of really wanted to do the Epcot International Flower and Garden Festival because it's just something I've always wanted to do. I thought it would be a really cool experience for us as honeymooners to, go and tour the world at the Epcot Flower and Garden Festival and enjoy everything there.
I had no idea what it was before you started talking about it.
Yeah, but we couldn't make that work for this year, for 2018. So that's why we're doing the late honeymoon for next year. So this whole series is going to be us talking about that trip, the planning, our thoughts, the research, and probably even going through the parks. And it's a way for us to kind of get more out of it, not
know
just
what we're looking for.
Right. Well, not just to share what we're learning about it with you and hopefully get your feedback, get some of your thoughts and expertise. But if you're an expert in anything, please let us know. Drop us the comments section of the video, or if you're live, type them in the chat.
Right. Or if you know anybody who's working at Disneyland, I mean Disney World, sorry.
Disney World.
If you know anyone who's working there that has any ideas, that would be wonderful too.
Inside information that we'll probably talk a little bit about later.
Most welcome.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate it. But the plan right now is to sit down almost every Wednesday night through the YouTube Hangouts on air at 8 p.m. Eastern. Life might get in the way, but make sure to check the upcoming streams if you're interested. And we'll have all of these scheduled and go from there. Right. We're not necessarily going to have a theme for each show ahead of time, like I do for the Geo Gearheads. That thing gets so planned out. And anyone who doesn't know, Geo Gearheads is based around geocaching, which is like a high-tech treasure hunt. But we've got all of this stuff back here is geocaching stuff, including GPSRs and that kind of thing. So, but let's talk real quick where we're at now. Okay. We're kind of stuck since we don't know when Epcot International Flower and Garden Festival will be in 2019.
Last year, the dates for the festival for 2018 weren't released until November. And generally it runs somewhere around March to May. But I think this year it started in February.
Yeah, it was end of February this year. And it was the longest run of the Flower and Garden Festival that they've had.
Do we know why?
They're trying to extend it.
Oh, okay.
And I think we have a little bit more information about it.
I think so.
But in order for us to get that time off in March, Renee has to book it at work at the beginning of October.
We have a 6-month thing. So it's quite possible if I don't book it in October, I won't get it because it's right around Jewish holidays, Easter, spring break, people who have kids, all those things.
And we'd rather not do this during the spring break, winter break season.
Yes.
So that's gotten a little bit murky, as we discovered. So I checked with a couple of the travel agents on the dates, and Heather over at MEI Mouse Fan Travel said, unfortunately, spring break is no longer contained into 1 or 2 weeks. It's more like a season now. It starts in early March with college students coming down and continues through mid-April, sometimes later, depending on Easter. Generally, the 2 weeks surrounding Easter tend to be the most busy.
Right. And this year, Easter and the Jewish holidays all come together. So I think Good Friday's on the 19th, and so that's all that weekend.
So yeah, we know that April is going to be out at this point. Mm-hmm. And we don't know exactly what's going on and all that kind of junk with April. Plus, as we get into April, then we get into the Star Wars weekend that I can't remember the name of, which would be fun to go to.
It would be.
It also probably means that Galaxy's Edge would be open.
That would be cool.
However, it also means higher crowds that we're probably still going to want to try to avoid. So we were looking at like the second half of March, and Mike over at Magic for Less said traveling in late March would be an excellent time to see Walt Disney World. The week that we're looking at is typically some of the best weather for Florida, and it also has the special events like Epcot International Flower and Garden Festival. So he thinks we're going to have a great time.
And I know Darryl knows way more about Disney World and about Walt Disney in general than I have any clue about, but he's a little bit out of date because he stopped watching podcasts about 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, at the time I was really into, doing all of the podcasts. Well, I had gotten back, and we really wanted to go back there. And I'm stockholder, so I was kind of interested in it from that perspective as well. Just finding out what was going on, because the parks are a big moneymaker for them. And a lot of the podcasts would talk about some of the history, because I'm really into the history. And the irony is I'm not really into the parks. I shouldn't say that. I wasn't into the parks until I started to learn about everything that went into building the parks, the Imagineering, the design, that kind of stuff. Then I had an appreciation for it and could really appreciate the fake reality that they set up. And that's brought me into the parks. So I really get into that. But several of the podcasts I used to listen to either went away or they changed hands. Like Inside the Magic was one that I used to listen to every week. He just shut that down. I think he's blogging still, but not doing the podcast. There was another one, WDW Today, and they changed hands, and I didn't like the new format, so I unsubscribed from that one. But I used to get a lot of great information about what's happening in the parks and about using all of the features. Like at that point, Magic Bands were still new, so there's a lot of talk about Magic Bands and the My Disney Experience app, and the FastPass Plus, and how to get the most from all of that, and the touring plans, which still exist, touringplans.com. So I really had a good feel for all of that stuff and how that stuff worked, which is one of the reasons why it's one of the few places I can go on a vacation and actually relax.
That sounds just kind of crazy.
It sounds
it's
silly,
like one of the craziest places on earth.
I understand
happy, but crazy.
Yeah, I understand it. I have the mental picture of the map in my head. I know where everything is and how to get there. I know roughly what I'm doing with all of the rides and everything. So it's just easy and comfortable for me. And because you're on property, you don't feel the need to, go off and explore as much.
That makes sense.
Which is one of the problems. As soon as I get out and try to start finding caches or whatever, it gets crazy, and a fun vacation turns into
a hunt.
Yeah, a mad dash.
But the problem at Disney World is you've found all the caches that are there.
All but one. There's one virtual cache that I haven't found, and I really want to do that one. We'll talk about that later, though.
Okay.
Because I want to talk about the games and stuff like that. And that's the other thing. The games have even changed. The last time I was there was the Kim Possible experience, and now that's Agent P's World Adventure or something like that.
Who's Agent P?
Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, okay.
He's the platypus.
Okay.
He's the Secret Agent Platypus.
Secret Agent Platypus.
Which I only know because of the game.
What game? Well, the games we're going to talk about later. Okay.
The Tim Tracker is a great source for Walt Disney World YouTube, the Tim Tracker. I actually came across some of his videos. I don't know that I had any booked, but I'll have to go back and check him out. And we have the separate channel set up for us that we're going and dropping in bookmark lists, or playlists rather, and liking videos. So if you want to see some of the stuff that we've checked out and we liked and we found valuable, go and check out some of those playlists. I've got one already for FastPass Plus and my Disney Experience, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another one that I set up. I can't remember what it is offhand, and I don't want to check it out right now because it might screw up the stream.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. So one cool thing about a lot of the hotels now, right? Because I have more pockets now that I've been geocaching. I have more things with pockets than I used to.
Well, I think what you're talking about is the news item that just came across
yes.
today on the Disney Parks blog, which if people don't subscribe to that, if you have any kind of news reader, subscribe to the Disney Parks blog because it's got a lot of good information in there. But they had an article today that said that almost all of the resorts, actually, I think it's technically all of the resorts on property now have the Bluetooth capability through the My Disney Experience app to unlock your door. So they tried this first at Disney's Wilderness Lodge, which is the one cache that I haven't found yet, the one virtual cache. So we've got to go there.
I'm really excited to go there anyway.
Yeah, because I haven't been on that one. I haven't actually been to any of the monorail properties aside from the Contemporary, and the Contemporary to me is just really boring. So it actually says now it's select Disney Resort hotels. So the list that they give in the help article, you have to actually click all the way through, says that now it's selected Disney Resort hotels: the Disney Wilderness Lodge, Copper Creek Villa and Cabins at Disney's Wilderness Lodge, Boulder Ridge Villas at Disney's Wilderness Lodge. I think there's a trend here.
30 of them there, though.
Oh, there's a ton. There's 25, I think, is what they actually said.
That's a lot.
The cabins at Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort, and that's actually something really cool. And I kind of thought about doing that.
What's the Beach Club Resort and the Beach Club Villas?
Those are really, really nice, and we can't afford to go there.
Oh,
but
wow.
Those are supported, as well as the Yacht Club, the Boardwalk Villas, and the Inn, which I'd also love to do.
Okay.
That if money were no object, that's probably where I would go because it's right there at Epcot, and we can go and do the Epcot and studio without even having to jump on any transit. We can just walk there.
Cool.
The Contemporary Resort, which, as I just mentioned, I don't really like. Bay Lake Towers, which is also over there. The Grand Floridian, the villas at the Grand Floridian, the Polynesian, the
I want to stay the next
villas
one.
and bungalows. I was going to say, if money were no object, I'd be staying in one of those bungalows. Or last I saw the rates, it was something like $1,800 to $3,200 a night for one of those things, but they are so awesome.
Wow. Yeah.
Animal Kingdom Lodge. Now, I actually did stay there, and that was very cool.
What about the villas? Those are probably
well,
very
that's
cool
the
there.
vacation club.
Oh.
So yeah, the Kidani and Jumbo House are both supporting it now. Old Key West Resort, which I've been told is one that we should look at doing. Saratoga, Caribbean Beach, which I stayed at and don't want to go back. Coronado Springs, Port Orleans, Riverside, and French Quarter. And I've been told this is probably where we should stay as honeymooners, but
why? Is it the romantic? Because it's
it's a moderate resort instead of being a value resort, and a little bit bigger room, nicer grounds, and so it's supposed to be a little bit shorter time to the parks. But realistically, I don't spend time in the room.
That's true.
And we're not looking to spend time in the room.
And not a bigger room anyway, that,
Yeah, the bigger room doesn't give us anything.
Yeah, right.
It just...
we had a big room on our actual wedding night, and we were so hungry, and it was so pouring rain, and we had strawberries.
Yeah, we had chocolate, strawberries, and champagne.
Yep. I mean, those were very nice. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. But. And then Art of Animation, which I want to visit. I don't want to stay there. Pop Century, which is probably what we're going to do.
That looks really cool, though. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I don't want to spend the time in the resorts on the grounds there. I want to go into the parks. That's what we're paying for.
I do kind of want to walk around because at Pop Century, from the vlog we watched, it's all separated by decades and like themed decades. Like the 80s has boom boxes and the 70s has 8-track tapes for their stairwells. Yo-yos were the 50s or 60s, something like that.
Yeah, yo-yos were the 60s, I think. And then the 80s was a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. Oh, 80s was 90s, the Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, 90s was a cell phone.
Wait, which one was the boombox then?
No one had a boombox.
There was a boombox doing something.
There was the radio, I think, the transistor radio.
Maybe that's what it was.
And the 80s had the
Rubik's
cassette
Cube
player, I think. They weren't stairwells; they were just decorations.
Oh, okay, no, but some of them were the stairwells. Like the 8-track tapes were the stairwells.
Yes, yeah, that was the 70s.
Right. But it looked pretty cool.
Anyways, All-Star Music, movies, and sports all have it as well. So you don't need to use your Magic Band, though that's still supposed to work. You can actually use your phone. So if you're doing the check-in from the app, this is going to be pretty cool. Yeah, we're talking about driving, not flying down, for a variety of reasons. If we were flying, it would be much more appealing to us because you do the Magical Express. You check your bags at the airport and they show up in your room. So
magic.
I've heard from many people that they just go from Magical Express right to the parks. So you have to still go to the resort, but they don't check in until after they get back from the parks. If you already have the Magic Band and everything, I guess you can just do that. So that would be really cool because your bags are just going to be in your room and you just go and check into the room that they tell you to do, I guess.
Okay. Do you get a new Magic Band every time you go?
Well, you can buy a new Magic Band every time, but it's only if you're staying on property with one of the Disney packages that you're getting the Magic Band for free.
Okay.
And then there's upgraded Magic Bands and blah, 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 blah.
Designer ones.
One of the reasons we want to stay on property rather than going off site is you get the extra magic hours. We're talking about doing the dining plans that we don't have to think about how much we're spending on food. Yeah, we have the transit system, which granted isn't great, but it's
way better than driving to each place every day or really walking miles and then not feeling like walking around the park all day.
Yeah. And we did look at the Swan and Dolphin too. And by the time we were done, it ends up being expensive and you lose so much of that on property benefit.
And parking was actually more.
Well, yeah, the property. Well, then that's one of the things that really sucks. The last several times I was at the parks, parking at the resorts was free, or the hotels. Now you have to pay. That is really, really obnoxious because it's essentially an additional tax for people who have a car with them. And when you fly down and you're doing Magical Express and you don't have the car, great. But because we're going to drive and not do all that, we're going to have to basically pay for the 5 days we're there, like an extra $100. At the Value Resort, it'd be about $130 or something like that at a moderate resort.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can find I have a note on this. I don't have it handy because I didn't expect to talk about it right now. Let's see. So, of course, I don't have that handy.
So when you stay off-site or off property, they don't have the shuttles. So how do you get to everything?
Well, there are shuttles from the off-site properties to the parks.
There are.
So you can get that, but it's not as frequent. I say that with an asterisk because there's always exceptions, and some of the bigger properties have shuttles running more often. But yeah, you can do the shuttles. It's just off property. It's going to be a different experience. You don't get the ability to charge to the room. You don't get the dining plan options.
Right.
So there's advantages and there's disadvantages.
If you want to buy something with Figaro, you have to carry it around with you.
And I know a lot of people who go both ways. Some of them just don't want to pay for staying on property because it is more expensive, especially now that you have to pay for the parking. And there's a lot of people who don't want to stay off-site. So it's kind of you got to figure out which one works best for you.
Mm-hmm.
And in our case, I think staying on property is going to be the better way to go. So yeah, I've talked to those 2 travel agents to get some ideas of what we're looking at as far as the options. I need to talk with them a little bit more before we pull any triggers, but I think we're settled on that end of March timeframe because it looks like it's going to be the best time for us to go. As far as crowds, we're not going to get any better pricing than that anytime we can go during the Garden Festival. So I think that's where we have settled on right now, is it's going to be that second half of March, sometime in there, that we're going to go for 5 days in the parks, but a week with driving down and back and visiting relatives and
interesting places, other resorts.
So that's about it for
what we are hoping though is both for us to talk it out, and maybe if anybody out there has some great ideas, tips, tricks, or anything along the way as we're planning, that would be wonderful.
Yep. So that's what we're looking for, is if you have any feedback, leave us those comments on the videos, and we'll hopefully get a chance to look through those and talk about them on maybe the next show. Next time, we don't know exactly what we're talking about yet, but we've got a ton of stuff that we have to learn more about. There's even some little power cells, like Go rods or something like that.
Oh yeah.
That I've got to learn a little bit more about, but we want to talk about that and see if it's worth doing.
Those are like you can rent them and it's for charging your phones, and you can drop it off and pick up a new one.
Exactly.
So your phone
fuel rods. That's what it's called.
Fuel rods.
Fuel rods.
That is a cool idea.
Absolutely.
So.
And they're from what I understand, not very good, but that's why we have to take a look at it, because the whole point is it's an exchange program on the battery.
Okay.
So
it's like an extra battery pack, kind of like what we have? Or?
No. We'll talk about it later. Okay. Let's not talk about that now. We're already over 20 minutes, and we need to save something for the next time we talk.
This is true.
So make sure to subscribe, hit the notify up in the corner there, the little bell icon. If you want to get notices on when we're going live and when we've scheduled stuff, you should get the alert. I think it's like half an hour or an hour before we go live, so you can join us. And like Brian did in the chat tonight, he's giving us some feedback and letting us know what he does. And that's really cool because we actually get to interact a little bit.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And you should see the chat over at the side. Actually, I think it's the side. On the
ours is down there.
Yeah. Well, in the recording, the chat actually stays with the timeline. So that's pretty cool now because you can actually watch the chat in.
Oh, that is cool.
Essentially what it was real time. So yeah, very cool stuff on YouTube. I like what they're doing. And, we use the YouTube Hangouts for Multipoint. My co-host is in Tacoma, Washington. So we've got us here in Michigan and him out in Washington doing the Hangout with usually guests from all around the world. And we're just going to use that same thing and hopefully actually get someone else to join us here and there and maybe even give us some tips live on the air.
That'd be great.
So thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed and make sure to send us your feedback.
Show them our shirts.
Yes. Renee wants to show us the shirts.
Wait, I need to stand on this thing or no one will ever see it. Uh-oh.
Okay. Too late.
Too late. Darryl got me a, oh, here, we could do it. I'll stand on my toes.
Okay.
So I have the Princess Leia shirt.
And I have the Solo shirt.
Can't see it.
Which doesn't work. Okay.
Can't see what it says. The whole, I love you, I know.
All right.
Much like I should wear it with that charm.
Yeah. Well,
from Brian.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got these specifically for the honeymoon in the parks. We hope to get more kind of funny, cutesy shirts like this just because.
Be dorks like that. Middle-aged weirdos going to.
We're honeymooning.
We're honeymooning. Middle-aged couple honeymooning in Disney World.
All right. Thanks again. We'll see you next week.